Have you ever promised yourself you'd change, made a big plan, felt excited for 3 days, and then quietly gave up? Maybe you said, "This year I'll get fit," but the gym membership expired, unused. Maybe you wanted to read more, bought 10 books, but they're still gathering dust. Or maybe you've set the same goal 5 years in a row, and every year it ends the same way, with disappointment and excuses. If that cycle feels familiar, if you're tired of big promises and small results, then this story will change how you think about goals forever. Because once, there was a man who tried to transform his entire life in 1 week and failed until he learned a simple principle. You don't need to change your life. You just need to change by 1%. Stay with me until the end. In a bustling city, in an ordinary apartment on the 7th floor, lived a 32-year-old accountant named David. David was intelligent, hard-working, and deeply frustrated with himself. Not because he was lazy, but because every time he tried to improve his life, he failed in the exact same way. Every January 1st, David would wake up with fire in his chest. "This is my year." He'd write an ambitious list. Exercise every day, 1 hour minimum. Read 50 pages before bed. Learn Spanish for 45 minutes. Wake up at 5 a.m., eat only healthy food. Meditate 30 minutes daily. For 3 days, he did everything. He felt invincible. His coworkers would ask, "David, what's changed?" And he'd smile confidently. "I'm becoming the best version of myself." But by day 4, his body ached. By day 5, he was exhausted. By day 6, he skipped one habit, then another. By week 2, he was back to his old routine, feeling worse than before. Not just because he failed, but because he had proven to himself, once again, that he couldn't change. His younger sister, Emma, would visit and notice the unused gym equipment, the untouched Spanish book, the abandoned meditation cushion. She'd ask gently, "David, why do you always do this? Why not start smaller?" But David would shake his head. "Small changes don't matter. If I'm going to change, I need to change everything, all or nothing." What David didn't realize was that this all-or-nothing mindset was exactly what kept him stuck. He had repeated this cycle 12 times over 6 years, 12 resolutions, 12 failures, 12 rounds of hope and shame. Late at night, staring at his reflection, he whispered to himself, "What if I'm just not the kind of person who can change?" One autumn evening, David received an invitation that made his stomach tighten, his 10-year university reunion. He almost didn't go, but something made him walk into that hotel ballroom, carrying the weight of a decade of unfulfilled promises. And there they were, his former classmates. Some had built successful businesses. Others had traveled the world. One had written a book. Another had run multiple marathons. David stood in the corner, holding a glass of water, answering the same question again and again. "So, David, what have you been up to?" He smiled weakly. "Oh, working, staying busy." But inside, his mind screamed, "I've been trying to change for 10 years, and I'm exactly where I started." Then he saw Marcus. Marcus had been the laziest student in their class. Late to lectures, barely passing exams. No ambition anyone could see. But now, Marcus looked different, healthy, confident, alive. David couldn't stop himself. "Marcus, you look incredible. What happened?" Marcus smiled. "I started getting 1% better every day." David frowned. 1%? That's nothing. That wouldn't change anything. Marcus's smile deepened. That's exactly what I thought, until someone showed me the math. He handed David a business card. There's someone I want you to meet. Coach Helen. She changed my life. That night, David lay in bed, staring at the card. Part of him wanted to throw it away. Another false hope. Another disappointment waiting to happen. But a quieter voice whispered, "What if this time is different?" The next morning, he made the call. Coach Helen's office was nothing like David expected. No motivational posters, no hustle slogans, just a simple desk, 2 chairs, and a whiteboard. Helen was a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a calm presence. She listened as David explained everything, the big goals, the brief success, the inevitable failure, the crushing shame. When he finished, she nodded slowly. "David, you're not lazy. You're not weak. You're just using the wrong strategy." She walked to the whiteboard. "Let me show you something." She wrote, 1.01 to the power of 365 equals 37. Then she wrote, 0.99 to the power of 365 equals almost 0. David stared, confused. "I don't understand." Helen smiled. "If you improve by 1% every day for 1 year, you don't improve by 1%. You don't even improve by 365%. You improve by over 3,000%. You become 37 times better." She paused. "But if you get 1% worse every day, you almost disappear." In that moment, something shifted in David's mind. The gap between who you are and who you could be isn't one giant leap. It's 365 tiny steps. Helen leaned forward. "David, you keep trying to run a marathon when you've never jogged around the block. Your goals aren't the problem. Your approach is." She pulled out a notebook. "Forget everything on your list, except one habit. What's the smallest version of the change you want?" David thought. "I want to exercise." Smaller. "I want to jog." Smaller. He paused. "I want to put on my running shoes." Helen smiled. "Perfect. For the next week, every morning, you will put on your running shoes. That's it. You don't have to run. You don't have to go outside. Just put on the shoes." David laughed. "That's ridiculous." Helen's expression turned serious. "You've been trying to become a different person overnight. Identity doesn't change in one day. It changes through repeated tiny actions. You don't need to become someone who runs 5 miles. You need to become someone who puts on running shoes. Once you're that person, running becomes inevitable." The next morning, David put on his shoes and sat on the couch. Day 2, shoes on. Couch. Day 3, shoes on. Walked to the door, turned back. His sister Emma visited on day 4. "David, are you going running?" "No," he said, lacing his shoes. "I'm just putting on my shoes." She looked confused, but David didn't explain. Day 5, put on running shoes, walked outside, stood on the sidewalk for 30 seconds, went back inside. Day 6, something strange happened. He walked outside, and his legs started moving. Not because he forced them, but because stopping felt unnatural now. 2 minutes. That was it. But he had run, week 2. Coach Helen asked, "How's it going?" "I've put on my shoes every day. Sometimes I run now. Not long, just a little." "Perfect." She said, "Don't add anything yet. Just keep this one habit." Weeks passed. Shoes on, door open, feet moving. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 15. One day, a coworker asked, Are you a runner now? David paused, then smiled. 1 month in, David's coworker asked, Are you a runner now? David paused. Was he? He still only ran 15 minutes. That wasn't much. But then he realized he'd run 28 days in a row. He'd never done anything for 28 days straight. Yeah, he said, surprising himself. I guess I am. That's when Coach Helen added the second habit. You're a runner now. Your identity has changed. What's the next 1%? David chose red for 10 minutes before bed. Just 10 minutes. 1 page if that's all he managed. Then a third habit. Spanish for 5 minutes daily. Not 45, 5. 6 months later, David had run 180 days in a row. Now doing 30 minutes daily. Read 15 books, 10 minutes every night adds up. Completed 2 beginner Spanish courses. Added healthy breakfast, another small habit. Started journaling 5 minutes daily. He wasn't doing everything. He was doing 5 small things consistently. His sister Emma visited again. She stopped in the doorway staring. David, you look different. He smiled 1% different every day. No, she said, you look like a completely different person. David checked the mirror. She was right. But the change had been so gradual, he hadn't noticed it happening. That's how transformation works. Invisible until suddenly. It's undeniable. 1 year after that painful reunion, David returned to the same hotel ballroom. This time, people didn't ask, What have you been up to? They asked, David, how did you do it? You look incredible. What's your secret? David smiled, remembering Marcus's words. I got 1% better every day. Some people nodded politely, not understanding. But a few, the ones who were tired of failing, leaned in closer. What does that actually mean? And David explained about Coach Helen, about the running shoes, about choosing one tiny habit, about identity change through repetition. You don't need to transform your life in 1 day. You just need to improve by 1%. Every single day. Start with something so small, it feels almost embarrassing. Because the person who can keep one small promise can keep any promise. And 1 year from now, you won't recognize yourself. If this story resonated with you, choose your 1% today and start, not tomorrow, today.